my very best to get this job that I so crave.
Hey, everybody, welcome. We're here for another Fan Zone debate. This is a number one contenders match. We are here, two rookies this season coming up, getting into the number one contenders match, going through some very good players along the way. Very much looking forward to this. We have Cody Newberry going up against Robert Kastner. So both of them debuting early this season. Cody in his debut taking on Mike Hanley in a very fun match, one of the more fun matches of the season. Robert taking on Jack Pinchuk, winning that match by KO. And then after some time off, Cody went up against Richard Schwartz, knocked him out, and Robert went up against Caleb Boatman in a very, very good match, one of the best matches of the season. So I am so looking forward to this. We've been kind of looking at Cody in Fan Zone. What does that look like? And then Robert having success in Warzone fandom, now coming into debate. What does that look like? Well, pretty successful because he's here in the contender match against Cody. Brooklyn, you are here as one of the judges today. Thank you for being here, sir. How are you doing? And what do you think of the matchup?
I'm feeling great. It is the year 2022, and I am judging a debate with Cody in it, knowing how long we've been in the community. I've debated Cody many a time. It is not fun. It is a very tough prep. I have been in Robert's shoes before, and I know that it's going to be it's if you're able to beat Cody, it's such a satisfying win. But yeah, I'm also excited for Robert because it's very much like an old guard versus a new guard. Robert just kind of joined the community a couple years ago, so there's that new kind of like fresh intake of thoughts. So yeah, I'm very excited.
All right, and Brian, you are here, one of the best judges we have circling around this joint. Thank you for being back, my friend. And how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. This is kind of coming towards almost the end of my first season, or whatever you want to call it, as a semi-regular judge here in Fan Zone. There have been some lopsided matches. There have been some not so great matches, let's just say. But now, as we're getting closer to the top, and now to this one, we know it's the best of the best. We're going to get, very interesting, very competitive arguments, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, and we just got to remember here at the end of this, one of these two has to go up against reigning champion Kurt Kolkowski, who has just been like dominating the scene for a while. And so I think either of those matches is great. But this match alone, I'm super excited for because both of these competitors have been super talkative about what is going to come up. So surprisingly enough, both of these competitors exact same ranking. They are both 2-0 with a knockout. So exact same records. There's no higher or lower seed behind the scenes. We kind of gave somebody one of the shots there as the higher ranked, and that was Robert. So Robert, you're coming in here to play Cody.
Yep.
You're 2-0. You got a knockout. You played Jack in an excellent match, but then Boatman kind of giving you a run for your money, but still excellent match down to the wire. And now you're taking on Cody, who you've gone up against managerial wise, but now you're playing in an actual match. What do you think of this matchup?
I also played against him with you, sir, in a Warzone teams match, and a very good one at that.
About that, that's true.
Yeah, that was a good one. I'm thinking that I was impressed by how Cody, in the matches that I'd seen him play, how it is that he approaches his debates. My hope is that very contentious, tenuous match with Boatman that went down to the wire helps me with dealing with an opponent of a caliber like Cody. While Cody also had to deal with, I mean, the one with Mike was fun, but I'm a different caliber of competitor, I will say, than like Richard, for instance. So I'm hoping that my experience having a tougher match will do benefits for me here, as opposed to what Cody did, where he was able to take advantage, I guess I will say.
Okay, interesting. We'll bring in Mr. Newberry now. Cody, you were going to be facing against Robert tonight. Like we said, you played Richard, you played Mike, both excellent matches. Richard, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, absolutely dominant. You won every vote, all 3 questions, a true crazy knockout, and now you're playing Robert, who has really earned his way here today. What do you think about the match?
Yeah, I did have the easier road. I'll say that. I did play Mike that talked about Jeffrey Stick, and then I battled Richard, which couldn't get his footing. But the only thing is, he battled where I think a spider would have been a good roommate against Jack. That Jack had no clue what was the world was going on in that match. And I debate Boatman every day, 7 days a week, hours on end. So I've already done that fight, and I'm glad you beat him. Listen, nothing against Robert. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's going to be a good opponent tonight, but I have one goal and one goal only, and that's to place Kirk. So win, lose, or draw, good luck to him, but I'm looking forward to playing Kirk. So that's my only goal tonight.
Very, very excited about this. So here's how this is going to work. We have questions for the players tonight based off of categories that they drafted. I came up with the questions, gave them to the players. They gave us some answers, and they're going to debate them tonight before our very souls. So I'm going to sit back with a bag of Cheetos and have a great fucking time watching this. So here's what's going to happen. They're going to debate them. Each of them are going to get a 1-minute opening, followed by a 5-minute free form between the two players, followed by a 1-minute closing. At the end of the debate, Brooklyn, Brian, and I will write on our handy dandy boards who we thought won that question. Best 2 out of 3 votes wins the point, and first person to 3 points wins the match. So should we be tied after the 4 prep questions, we will go to a bonus question to decide the winner. Gentlemen, any questions about how this is going to work for this contender match?
Nope.
All right, well then let's get into it. The 2012 film Ted is an absolute classic. You should all go watch it. But if you're playing Jacoby Bancroft in Fan Zone, I don't suggest using it as a topic. It is my downfall. Anyway, let's get into the match with the first question. This was drafted by Mr. Kastner, I believe, which was the category of comedy. The question is, what is the best Will Ferrell performance in a comedy? So, Mr. Kastner, you will be starting this one. You have 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
When I was considering best Will Ferrell performance in a comedy, I was thinking about where is it that he sort of takes control, and where is it where the movie is sort of really dependent upon his skills as a comedian, as an improver, and where does that really come into effect the best? And I was thinking the best performance in this case was Step Brothers. Step Brothers is ultimately objectively a funnier movie than Cody's, and that's really due a lot to the comedic stylings and improv of Will Ferrell. Step Brothers isn't so much a movie as it is a series of vignettes and scenes. It doesn't really have a story. So it's really kind of the performances that hold it together that make it one of the funniest movies of the century, the decade, however it is you want to say that. And that's a lot based on how it is that Will Ferrell composes himself, him and John C. Reilly, but mostly Will Ferrell. When you look at Cody's movie, there's a lot of different aspects of it that make it a better movie that don't necessarily rely on Will Ferrell to make it go the way it does, as opposed to Step Brothers, where, again, it's just a bunch of scenes kind of brought together by his comedy stylings.
Time. Okay. We are going to bring in Mr. Newberry for his 1 minute opening when he starts talking.
Yeah, so when you pick a movie, a performance, and a comedy where he's the lead, yeah, I chose Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, the character Ron Burgundy, the stories about Ron Burgundy, and everybody that interacts with him. It's actually the rise and fall and the kind of rise back up of Ron Burgundy. It shows more emotions than just being a comedy. It shows his romantic side, him trying to fall in love with a woman. He shows that he has to lead a team and have people support him, an entire town get behind him, and he loses all them. He loses everything. His own dog gets kicked at one point. He is at the lowest of lows and still be able to rise above that. Your movie says that it's just Will Ferrell, I'm sorry, it's called Step Brothers. There's another brother involved in that entire dynamic that is as big or even slightly bigger than yours. And I think he steals so much thunder from Will Ferrell. Without him, I don't think Will Ferrell's near as funny in that movie. So I'll rest.
All right, time. Okay. Two of my favorite movies going up against each other. 5-minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
So Cody, you mentioned sort of the rise and fall, and that Will Ferrell's really dependent on John C. Reilly. I would say it's Will Ferrell's his big bombasticness that sort of allows John C. Reilly to play this undertone character that really plays in his acting style. But I don't think without that, I think Will Ferrell props him up based on how it is that he interacts with him. I think if it was John C. Reilly with somebody else, I don't think it's as funny, because I think you need that contrast. And I think that's really what sort of builds Step Brothers into the movie. It kind of is. And there's stuff that he does beyond just being the normal Will Ferrell stuff. There are some cool, like, talent-based things that happen in there that don't necessarily happen as well in Anchorman, like his opera singing, his rapping. I think there's more heightened physical comedy necessarily in Step Brothers. So I think there's a little bit that you're selling short with regards to the Step Brothers.
Yeah, and there's more balls and dicks and shit jokes in that movie too. Like, if we're gonna boil it up to it, I'm gonna say this is not best who is the funniest or where they work. This is best performance overall. And I would say that Anchorman is giving the best overall performance in the movie. He's doing not just comedy, dramatic, romance, all the things encompassed into this performance as this character. He runs the entire news team. He has funny vignettes. I would almost say that Brennan is kind of just Will Ferrell just playing out an older of himself. Like, he's just shooting the shit with John C. Reilly the entire time. He sees who can yell louder at certain points, or who can make the funnier, like, sexual innuendo jokes. But there's no, like, real performance based in that, because they're so just who can improv better than the other. And I would say John C. Reilly outshines him in his own movie next to him the entire time.
Well, I think there's a lot of bells and whistles that necessarily go into making Anchorman potentially the better movie, and there's a lot of production, set design. I think the writing does a lot to what makes Anchorman the level of the comedy that it is. Whereas I know there's improv in Anchorman, but I think the majority of what Step Brothers is improv. And I think, as someone who did improv myself in college, when you have, there's a lot of burden that comes onto your performance as a comedian and being able to give and take. And I think that happens a lot with what Step Brothers goes on in Step Brothers. I think there's more sophistication to Anchorman, as opposed to that lowbrow element that you were mentioning in Step Brothers, which might seem repetitive, but it's not, because of this dynamic that Will Ferrell creates with John C. Reilly. It makes it so funny and makes the movie better than it should be.
Well, I just real quick, just because mine has the better production design and the writing between the character, Will Ferrell still has to go in and perform the scenes and do it. So I'm not going to get discredit because yours is more vaudeville or more improv based. That's also something we can't really prove this side of not being on set. So my viewpoint is, you can give him credit because he sings an operatic song in there, and that's a performance based. But mine, where he has to interact with every major character, and still characters that sometimes have funnier scenes than him, still outshine them in their own moments. And then when he goes to his lowest of lows and comes back from it, listen, this is best performance inside a comedy. I love Step Brothers. I think Step Brothers is hilarious. But at the end of the day, I think there are two characters in that movie that are so crucial to their own, when they're even solo or apart from each other. I would say that Will Ferrell's more of the straight man to John C. Reilly setting up the jokes and slapping them out of the park. Like, I just feel like overall Anchorman as a movie, you can say it's better, but I'm saying Will Ferrell is doing more within that film, what he has to do with Christina Applegate, with his characters all around him, that news team. And when he says, fuck you, San Diego, and everybody turns on him, he falls to the lowest. I say he actually shows actual depth within this movie.
I want to go to what you had mentioned before. You mentioned that there are times when there are people who are working have better comedic relations to him. That's where I think that sort of falls flat, because I think in Step Brothers, it's basically revolving around those two. Whereas in Anchorman, there's even scenes where Will Ferrell's not in it at all, and the movie still kind of ticks along. Yeah, there's a lot of scenes with, like, Christina Applegate and Fred Willard. And I think there's a lot of comedic timing things that happen. I think in a lot of cases, when people think about Anchorman, it was really kind of a rise of comedic genius for Steve Carell and Paul Rudd, not to mention everybody else. So I think Will Ferrell sort of acts as a catalyst for them. I know he's Ron Burgundy, and the movie's about him, but I think there are a lot of performances around him.
I will say the Christina and Phil Rudd, that's one scene. Will Ferrell was throughout this entire movie. Like, let's not paint a picture that's not really there. Okay.
Time. Okay. So we're gonna move to Cody for his closing. Cody, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
Best performance in a comedy starring Will Ferrell, I would say, is Anchorman. Anchorman, basically, he has so many funny jokes throughout, so his comedic level is at an all-time high, but he also shows range from being sad to happy to rising back up, setting the news team with him. Yes, every character in a comedic thing has a time to shine, but he's the tool that moves them all along. Step Brothers, Brennan is great. I think Dale outshines him. I think Richard Jenkins, his parts are even fun. Adam Scott, like, they all play this crucial part where he's kind of just like one of the guys making the fart jokes, making the ball jokes. Doesn't mean that's not a bad performance, but I think it's one note throughout it, and it's basically who can get louder than the other throughout the movie and who can say the most outrageous things. Is that a greater performance? I don't think so. Is it funny at times? Sure, absolutely. I laugh, but overall, if we're talking about greatest performance inside of a comedy with Will Ferrell, it's Anchorman and his character Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy. Let's go to Robert for his closing. Sir, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think Cody's shortchanging the idea of what Will Ferrell does in Step Brothers. I think he does get sad. I think there is emotion that comes out in his vocal performances that does carry the movie along. As I mentioned, and as Cody mentioned, there's a lot of comedic performances within Anchorman that allow that movie to shine and sort of rose and prop Will Ferrell up in that movie. Not to mention, like I said, there's a lot of Adam McKay and Will Ferrell's writing in Anchorman that really prop that up, that set up the jokes, that move things along, the production, set designs, all of that. It's a better movie than Step Brothers as a movie as a whole. But I think Will Ferrell's performance in Step Brothers, because of the improvisational nature and the everything that goes into his comedic performance within it, that pushes that along as a better performance in a comedy. I think there's a lot of stuff that happens around Anchorman that allows it to be successful, whereas Step Brothers hinges on the back of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly a bit, but Will Ferrell too. He's the leader of that production. He helped Adam McKay write that along, but it's really his improv nature, his comedic timing that sets that apart.
Time. Okie dokie, artichoke, as they say in the Midwest.
We don't say that.
Grr.
Move to Wisconsin, my friend.
Trying every day.
We can
Sorry,
watch.
one second.
We can watch these classics together.
Second here. Yeah. Okay.
All right, I'm good. Brooklyn and Brian, are you guys good?
Yeah.
All right. This was weird. I don't know. I'm having trouble collecting my thoughts, if I'm going to be honest. And maybe that's because I think both of them did a very good job. It's tough, honestly. Like, doing a performance in a comedy is tough to kind of narrow down versus something like a drama or whatnot. So I think they both did a very good job at kind of describing what Will Ferrell looks like in both these movies. And it was weird. There were no arguments in this that made me like straight up be like, oh my God, that was like the winning thing. It was all just very like civil. Here we go. Here's what it is. And at the end of the day, I went with Cody. I think that his whole thing of like, he gave me specific examples from the movie of like, when this happens, Ron Burgundy has this reaction, and so Will Ferrell has this type of performance in it, versus Step Brothers, where he did say, Robert did say a lot about the improv part of the role. Cody kind of convinced me on why that's true, but John C. Reilly, Richard Jenkins, other people in the film have better performances there. So this was really close in like a not like a normal type of close way, in the sense that this was just like a very normal this felt like more of a conversation than a fight. And I think Cody just barely edged it out. So Brooklyn, where are you going and why?
Yeah, I agree. This was like almost like a true 10-9 round. But yeah, I'm not used to seeing Cody this tempered, I guess. He can kind of come out of the gates rolling. But yeah, I think this ultimately came down to who had the better like supporting, or like who was the more supporting performance. I think Robert hit a really good point about how Ron Burgundy was kind of the catalyst for everybody else in the movie. Having said that, though, I think Cody did a really good job of how that really is not as terrible as just being like the setup guy for John C. Reilly, where it's kind of being weirder and weirder and whatnot. But yeah, really good, like a good 10-9 round.
All right, so Cody wins the point. Brian, your vote doesn't count. Where would you have gone and why?
Well, like I said, if we're getting into these higher levels of competition, it's a lot more even. It's a lot better arguments, and also a lot more intelligent arguments. So, I know Cody's fighting himself not to hold back with all the, gestures and stuff. He doesn't have to, because it's not hearing nonsense. He's hearing decent arguments. Like you, I was kind of waiting for that thing that would like tip it one way or the other, and I wasn't hearing it, not because they weren't making good arguments, but because they were making very even arguments. In the end, just looking for something to tip the scales for me, I kind of latched on to something Cody said pretty early on, when he said that in Anchorman, he kind of is creating like this character, whereas in Step Brothers, he's kind of just playing a heightened version of himself. So I did vote for Cody, as much as I don't buy for a second he was trying to play drama and romance and things. Let's back off on that.
That's fair. All right, so Cody wins point number 1.
50% bullshit.
Okay. We're going to move on to question number 2. This is in the category of, it's one of my favorites. It's Pixar. The question in the category of Pixar is, which Pixar character would be the most fun to take a road trip with? Very excited about this one. Cody, you drafted this category, so you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Road trips are one of the most painful, miserable things on the planet to do if they're over 4 hours, in my opinion. So you want somebody you're going to get along with, somebody that can possibly protect you through things. If you get into scary situations, somebody that's got probably good jokes, good music ability, overall a good buddy to travel the road with. Somebody that's not going to annoy you, somebody that's not going to do something in your car that pisses you off like 2 minutes down the road. And I went with James P. Sullivan. I went with Sully. I think Sully adds so much to this. 1, he's hilarious. 2, he knows how to have a good time. He also knows how to take a nap like nobody's business. So sleeping in the car when you're taking a certain kind of the road, you don't have to hear, countless conversations from somebody. I'll get into more of Robert's. I won't tear his apart yet, but his is annoying as fuck, and I can't wait to destroy it.
Time. I'm holding my own show up.
What's going on, YLS? What's up?
Yeah, I don't know. It just keeps changing.
What's your 10-9-8?
What's your 10-9-8? There we go. Okay. So we are gonna take out Cody. And that is textbook pandering, by the way. We are gonna go to Robert. Robert, 1 minute to open your argument when you start talking.
I'm worried about the kind of road trips that Cody goes on where he needs to have protection. When I think about a road trip, it is nice to have somebody who's successfully completed an exciting and adventurous road trip to make sure that we can get to where we need to get to. I also think a road trip is not just about getting to your destination, but about the experiences you have along the way and how you grow as part of that journey. And that is why for my road trip, I picked Barley Lightfoot from Onward. I think Barley's not annoying at all. I think he's very endearing. He's very optimistic. I think he's very supportive about trying to get you to evolve and get used to new things for the sake of growing. I think with Barley, it's not necessarily about taking the easiest path, but that which reveals your character. And I think in a situation where you want to get to where you want to get to, but it's not just about that with a road trip. It's about sharing something with someone. And I think Barley does that a lot better than Sully. And I will go into why Sully is a terrible, terrible companion. But for this point, wrapping up here in my opening, Barley's loving. He's in tune with feelings. He wants to make sure that you have a good time, and he's not about bringing you down. And if we're going on a long, arduous trip, that's what I need. So Barley's the best.
Time. That's textbook Pandaran.
Do we need a pause for Robert or Brian to go do what he's got to do?
Yeah, just 1 second. I just got to bring something to my wife upstairs. I'll be right back.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, listen, you got Chris Pratt, but speaking in Old English, I don't know if you just signed up for Match.com and you're going on a trip with one person for the first time that you've never met before, but I don't let anybody in my passenger seat that I haven't met for a little bit of an extended period of time. You're saying this guy's going to make me discover stuff and make me, that's the worst person I can have on a road trip. Oh, you're going to pick apart the snacks or the food or the music I want? He wants to take me on a journey and play this fucking board game while we have to stay in a hotel together? I will lose my mind. He also, the one time he gets out of the vehicle, of course, he's small, he gets into a freaking fight at the gas station with a bunch of people because he can't control his mouth. You're telling me this is the guy on the road trip? Listen, we've already seen Due Date and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You just picked John Candy, but the worst version of it. I don't know if we're ever going to make it to our destination because I'm going to rip his head off.
Cody, the things that you said that you don't want in a road trip are things that a lot of people actually do kind of want in a road trip. They do want a bit of self-discovery. And you know what's worse than having someone who's annoying? Having someone who's a 7'8" monster and finding a practical vehicle that you guys can get around with. And by the way, if we do find a vehicle that's that large that we can have him with, the way gas prices are continuing to grow nowadays, we wouldn't be able to leave the town limit. So I don't know what kind of road trip that's going to be. By the way, Sully's going to make my car or our vehicle, whatever we're using, smell like garbage or a dumpster or maybe a wet dog, especially if he gets wet when we're in the car and, we get back in the car. If there's inclement weather, he happens to get wet, that might happen. Can you imagine what that's going to smell like? What damage he might do to my vehicle as we're trying to get through? That's insane. I mean, there's a practicality to it. I know we're talking about Pixel, but there's a practicality to a road trip that he doesn't really fit along with.
Well, listen, I'm not a size. I don't judge people on the size of. I judge on friendship and who their heart is. And let me tell you, I'm going to have a vehicle. And just for sakes of art, I'm a multi-billionaire. Who gives a fuck? At the end of the day, I'm going on a road trip. I had to pick somebody. I'm picking Sully. One, because if we get out of the gas station, no one's going to ask me for anything. Because you know what? I'll probably get some stuff for free because everybody's terrified of that man. And you're going to come at me and talk about the hygiene of Sully? Have you seen his vehicle? It smells like dirty Doritos and feet as soon as you look at Guinevere.
But,
and you're going to
but at least he has a vehicle.
Oh,
at least
and
he
guess
has
what?
a vehicle. Sully doesn't have a vehicle to get it.
I'm driving. I don't care. But listen, the other thing is, on our self-discovery and our things that are mean the most to us, because I'm guessing you're using Guinevere as the ride, he wrecks the thing if it tells his mind that he thinks, oh, this would be a better plan for us. He destroys the vehicle. We're walking on foot, all pissed off. You're never getting to your destination. And Sully, as at least is a funny, enjoyable guy, and I don't care that he's 7'8", because guess what? If Wilt Chamberlain wanted to ride with me, I'd let him ride with me too. I don't care how tall you are.
I mean, Barley is a funny guy, and he doesn't necessarily put his onus on you. And we don't necessarily have to take Guinevere. We can take my car, which we would have to do if it's Sully. And my car is in bad shape, so it's going to be terrible for us to get anywhere.
Maybe you shouldn't be taking a road trip.
He doesn't have a license, so the burden of all the driving is going to be on me. At least I know that Barley will be able to take over some of the responsibility. And which version of Sully are we getting? Are we getting the 18-year-old version from Monsters U, where he's kind of a dick and he's lazy and he doesn't really do anything?
No.
Oh, we're getting the 28-year-old one who runs Monsters Inc. How is he going to go on a road trip? He's married to his work, Cody. And even if he comes on the trip, he's probably going to be working all the time. There's not going to be much enjoyment to be had. So.
Hey, listen, I'm really glad that you went through this like a logistics standpoint, and that's going to really good. We're hoping the judges are listening. In jobs, you get PTO. PTO is paid time off. Guess what? He's taking a week off to go trip with me. Guess what? I have a plan for everything you're coming up with. I'm telling you why Sully's a better thing. Your guy speaks in Old English. We haven't even.
He doesn't do that all the time, Cody.
We haven't even discussed that yet. We talk in Old English. I'm telling you right now, when I'm asking, hey, would you like to go to Culver's or would you like to go to McDonald's? And be like, well, in the raging days, we would ride our steams to the thing. I would literally boot him out of the vehicle and kill him on site. And I'm telling you, Sully sleeps. And you're telling me somebody else is going to ride? Barley drives the entire time in his vehicle. Doesn't want anybody. And the one time he guides somebody else to drive, they almost wrecked the car.
That's because they weren't used to I'm used to driving, so at least that's not going to be a problem.
Sully
also isn't a planner, so not only do I have to do all the driving, but I'm also going to have to plan the entirety of the trip, so all the pressure is going to be on me to figure out how everything's going to happen. Not to mention, Sully can't be with humans, right? I mean, if he's found out with a human, then there's going to be an issue.
We're driving in Monsters, Inc. I don't know.
But then I'm the one who has to be hidden, and I'm not going to be
able to. He dealt with Boo. I'm living in the world, and Tim gave me the question. This is whatever I'm in, and he can be in, we're in. That's enjoy it.
Okay. Robert.
Yeah.
You get to kick this one off for the closing. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
Everything that Cody was saying that he said is annoying about Barley is endearing, really. He's very loving. He's very funny. He doesn't talk in Old English all the time. I know he's going to be helpful on the trip because he can actually drive. He has a vehicle if we decide to use that. If we don't, then at least we can take turns. There's something good about Barley. He's a student of the past. He's not a proponent of technology. So it's actually going to be refreshing. We're not relying on technology. We're unplugged. We're enjoying the naturality of this road trip. Sully, there's so many practical issues with him, not to mention that his MOs would be scary. What happens if we get in a situation where we do get in a brawl? Yeah, he might be able to take care of it, but there might be extenuating circumstances and consequences after that. There might be police involved. There might be, who knows what's going to happen. So, Sully could scare me while I'm driving. I could get forced into an accident. I don't know what's going to happen with him. There's a lot of uncertainty with Sully. Even in the world of Pixar, whatever world we're in, where Barley, at least I know I'm going to discover something about myself that makes me feel good. He's optimistic. He's positive. He keeps me that way on the road trip.
All right. We're going to move over to Cody, who has 1 minute to close his argument when he starts talking.
Fucking police show up. Sully kills him. Barley shows up, and guess what? He gets you guys are all dead, all in jail. He can't do anything. He gets into one fight with a bunch of people in the gas station when he's just trying to buy cheesy poops. Listen, that's a problem. You're in, and he's talking in Old English. Guess what? If you're driving through like my state, they're gonna be all pissed off if you start speaking in Old English. I'm just letting you know right now. I picked a character that's fun, enjoyable, listens to music, has fun. He's got paid time off. I can be with him in the car. All these logistic things mean nothing to the argument because I had to pick somebody Pixar, and I'm a human, and they're cartoons. Like, at the end of the day, that doesn't mean jack shit. You're with somebody from medieval times. Like, what? And you don't even have a vehicle. You're saying if you can use his vehicle and your vehicle's in bad shape, they wrecked Guinevere at the end of the movie. So what are we talking about? Overall, Sully's a better character. Sully's going to be fun, enjoyable, helps me if I get scared, can lift up the tire so I can jack if the car gets broke down. Everything Sully's a better thing than
time.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
There's
I just want
Cody.
to...
Really had a fun time with this one. Let me say.
Oh, shit, man. Wow. I guess I have to pick someone, huh? Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
How drunk are you tonight, Tim?
Honestly, not that bad. I took a break.
I was going to say not enough.
I'm just saying, there's
Not enough.
Or like in between the questions, he's like, "You seen right here?" Starts with an R or C. Just write it down. Neither one of us will be offended. I promise.
Really? I would like to hold that again.
You can. On this argument, I'm fully okay with it. Write what you need.
All right. Sorry. Brian, you get to go first. Your vote didn't count last time.
Yeah, so Cody was right that Robert started getting into a weird argument. We started doing the logistical side of it as far as gas prices and can he get off work and things like this, and a lot of real world type of stuff, which he's right. In the world of the question, it's not the kind of thing you can really factor in much. I mean, but he tried to argue it, and I understand it. However, I honestly think that Robert, who I voted for, made a great point when he's like, all the things that Cody says that you wouldn't like about him are the things that would make him a great companion on a road trip.
I want to kill myself because and Robert,
not jokes anymore.
Let me rephrase. I do not want you to take this the wrong way. This is nothing against Robert. I voted for Robert, and the reason I said that first thing is Monsters Inc. is my favorite fucking movie.
Sorry.
And so voting against Sully's tough, and I agree with Brian that the gas prices thing and the smell and all that stuff, I was like, Robert, please stop. And he did, and eventually got onto some points that I thought overall won him the point for me. I think that Cody did a really good job of explaining the annoying qualities of barley, but didn't give me enough on why Sully would be overall the 100% greatest versus barley. I don't know. It was weird. It was honestly, at the end of the day, it was close. But I did go with Robert. So Robert wins the point. Brooklyn, where are you going and why?
Yeah, I went with Robert as well. I loved like the lateral kind of thinking, like with the logistics of it and whatnot. I think Cody did a good job with the points that he tried to bring up, like using facts from the movie to kind of prove why Barley isn't a great companion. But Robert did probably my favorite new technique, is use the logistics of your opponent's movie to prove why your character doesn't work. So I think that was really impressive.
Okay, so we're all tied up 1-1 as we get into the next question. This was going to be drafted by Mr. Kastner. It is in the category of horror icons. The question is, what is the worst 1980s horror icons film? Woof. Sorry, guys. So, this is going to be kicked off by Mr. Kastner. Robert, you have 1 minute when you start talking.
I think when you think of an 80s horror icon movie, you think of something that's schlocky, that's bad, but you hope that there's something that allows you to get some sort of gravity towards it. And my movie has none of that. And that's why it's the worst. I picked Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. After Halloween 4, which people could arguably say is the second best Halloween movie, there's a big lull in 5. It's basically kind of a commercial money grab to continue this franchise that had moved away from Michael Myers and had to come back. And it really lacked heart or real purpose. You can feel within the movie that it seems like the people who were making it actively hated it. There's a point where they try to drive home this mysticism argument. There's a psychic connection between a little girl, his niece, and him. There's a cult of Thorn that you learn about the origins of in the next movie, but you get the sense of that. So you feel like Michael's actually being controlled as a puppet, which is stupid because it takes away the mystery and the idea of him being this unstoppable killing machine, because he was born and is controlled basically by another governing body. It's really stupid. And there's nothing that's endearing of quality within Revenge of Michael Myers.
Time. Okay. We're going to move over to Mr. Newberry. 1 minute when you start talking.
So 80s horror movies, you want death, you want occasional tit, and a 90-minute runtime. The problem with my movie is the kills you don't see. The killer is not even the killer. They give up so much on this movie that the the killer at the very end, they have to explain who that was because no one else remembers what's going on. Every kill is done off screen or to the side or nothing like in your face. At least his movie has a direct continuation to the movie that is happening. This one is supposed to make you say, "Hell, this one, oh, because Jason's no longer in the picture. This is the new person," but do all the stuff of Jason, which is so dumb. And I'll get into more. Mine is a new beginning, but the same beginning. I'll rest.
Okay. All right. Revenge of Michael Myers. A New Beginning. 5-minute freeform. When one of you starts talking.
Cody, at least in your movie, because there's a natural conclusion in the final chapter that Jason is gone. So at least
Right.
in A New Beginning, they're trying to do something different. Whether it's successful or not is up for debate, obviously. But they removed this killer they had in 3 movies already. I don't want to harp on this point. You did bring it up in your opening. At least your movie does have nudity, and it does have interesting kills, like the kill with the road flare, the decapitation, the guy who gets his face grinded up by the stick and the strap. At least there's something that's interesting. And in Revenge, every kill is basically the same. There's no nudity. There's nothing inappropriate that you would want to glom onto as an 80s horror movie, where Friday the 13th, A New Beginning does have those things. So at least it makes it enjoyable in that way.
And you can say the flare and everything else, but those are literally glimpses. They turn it and you see nothing, but you see blood splatter. You see this thing. And at least in yours, you actually see, knives go in. The fork goes to the guy's face. Donald Pleasance is at least still in this movie, and they are still having that battle, regardless of how you feel about their relationship. It still has something continuation. It makes sense why it's happening. This I'm going to spoil the hell out of this movie. There's an entire plot basically where the fat kid at the beginning gives chocolate bar to the serial crazy person with an axe. He chops him up. He kills him. The medic that picks up the dead body turns out to be Roy, the new Jason, and the one person he doesn't kill in the entire movie is the guy that killed his son, but he kills everybody else around him that you can't see and you can't do. And then at the end of the movie, they're like, "Oh yeah, it was Roy. It was the guy that was at the beginning of the film." They had to basically break it down to us because the twist ending didn't mean anything, and they go right back to Jason after the fact. They ruined so many things in this movie. The dialogue's bad. The script is god awful. It was directed by a porn director, basically. Yours has a continuation. It makes perfect sense. He gets shot, dropped down a well. He comes back. He goes for the kills. He has those kills. He does all the things. It's still a Michael movie. He kills same like Michael. He does everything Michael. But this one, hey, we're not going to do Jason, but we're going to do Jason. It's completely a mess.
At least in yours, though, there is an element. I know you said that was done poorly, but at least there's an element of a mystery because you're in this. By the way, you're in a setting that hasn't been explored yet. So there's some interesting concepts of. We haven't really got a horror movie that's in like a halfway house with troubled kids. So there's an interesting setting. There's sort of a lack of repetitiveness. There's that added element to it. And at least they're trying to do some sort of a mystery with regards to A New Beginning. And they do have Roy show up constantly to try to egg you on to get to that, even if you can't get to that. I mean, by the way, there's also a big part. What's an 80s movie? At least yours has like some popping and locking. There's some fun stuff. My movie is bad with nothing endearing about it. Yours is bad, but at least it has things about it that make it interesting, or at least give me what I want from an 80s horror movie. Revenge, the acting is atrocious. You said Donald Pleasance in it, but I feel horrible for him that he's trotted out to do this. There's a lot of reliance on a 12-year-old, Daniel Harris, flailing, twitching, crying. And when you have a horror movie that's based around a kid, who's the main person, the backbone of that horror movie. If you don't have good writing, it creates these untenable problems because kids are naturally bad actors, and she sort of heads the grouping of that.
I have to disagree. I think she's the best part of this movie besides Donald Pleasance. I think she adds the supernatural factor to get you back into Michael, to find the things. Michael is doing all these kills that are at least interesting. His showdown with Donald Pleasance at the end is the most interesting at anything that happens in the entire Friday the 13th movie. Friday the 13th movie, you're saying it's a halfway house because they've never done it before. It's sleepaway camp because they have no rules and they're allowed to go fuck wherever they want to fuck. So you're saying just because it's a house instead of a camp, it's the same thing. It's the exact same formula. The guy wears a hockey mask. He does the exact same thing as Jason, and nothing changes besides the kills completely strike down. And at least in Michael, he's still killing like Michael and doing exactly what you want. And it's a continuation of the story that makes it interesting to see where they're going to go next after the story.
I have no interest in this. I mean, again,
That's your problem.
they had to do this mystical element that we didn't need for the first couple of movies because he's just a guy who was troubled, who came out of an insane asylum, who went on a killing spree. But then they tried to make it so that there was this psychic connection, this mystical element that didn't really need to be involved. And because of that, then they go and reboot everything in 1998 and everything is not canon anymore.
He's already got those mysticisms.
All right, Robert. Or no,
Cody.
Cody, you are going to get to close first. You have 1 minute, my friend, when you start talking.
Basically, Friday the 13th, The New Beginning, shows all these kills off screen. No one knows, like everybody knows it's supposed to be Jason, but it's not Jason. But he even wears the hockey mask, walks like Jason, does everything like Jason, but just to prove out that it's somebody else at the end. And then they bring Jason back for the following movie. Michael Myers, the revenge of Michael Myers makes sense. He gets wounded at the very end of the movie, dies basically, everybody thinks, and comes back. And at the end, shows a continuation of the story. It has like Daniel Harris is like foreseeing where he's at. There's the hunt down. Donald Pleasance sets traps for him. There's the instant battles. He still kills so many people throughout this movie that makes it at least interesting and fun with Michael. Michael has the slow moving, the shape, the everything like that. Friday the 13th has no cool. The one thing that Friday the 13th is supposed to have is a ton of cool kills, and everything happens offset, off scene. You don't get to see any of the cools. So you're just sitting there for 90 minutes, bored off your ass, wondering like, oh, cool, it's Roy. I'm done.
All right, Robert, you have 1 minute to close your argument, my friend, when you are ready.
Just because something's a continuation of what happened behind it doesn't mean that it makes it better of these movies. Everything should have stopped then. We believe Michael just gets set up and he is in a coma and then he comes back a year later and it's based on the fact that there's this mystical element that doesn't fit, and they had to reboot that when we get to H2O because all of these didn't make sense and they didn't work. Michael looks really stupid in this. The thing that we talked about, that Cody talked about with the how it is that Loomis sets the traps, it doesn't make any logical sense in a movie that makes no logical sense. Pretty freaking idiotic how it is that he sets up to subdue him. It doesn't hold, at least in Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Not all the kills are off screen. Cody had said you see how it is that stabbing occurs. You see the kills. There is some nudity. There is some inappropriateness that you would want in an 80s horror movie that Revenge gives you none of. Nothing creative, nothing fun. Everything in it is contrived. It's really stupid. At least they tried to do something new with A New Beginning. Whether it worked or not doesn't matter. They tried.
Right. So I'll bring in the judges. All right, Brooklyn. I believe you get to kick us out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Cody. Cody did a really good job of breaking down Robert's attacks, in particular, like the kind of the kills and how he was really able to sell how they were done kind of off screen, and kind of the effects and whatnot. But yeah,
Ryan.
I'll still say right front. I also went with Cody. I think he just did a better picture for me of painting a picture of especially for me who have seen both these movies, but I don't remember them very well. He kind of told me all the reasons, what's wrong with this movie, why it doesn't fit. I think especially, I mean, it's been debated, but that's kind of the whole point, is that whether or not they occurred off screen, at least a good chunk of them, it sounds like occurred off screen with just blood splatter, things like that, which is not what you want from an 80s horror icon film. And also it's the fact that when you're talking about the horror icons, how said the killer turned out it's not even really the killer, because Jason isn't the killer anymore, and they bring him back the next movie because this one didn't really start what they wanted to start. So I gave it to Cody.
That last point about Brian, pretty much summed it up for me. I went with Cody as well. The fact that Cody pointed out it's not Jason, and I liked Robert's idea of saying, well, they're trying something new, they're doing something different. But I thought Cody did a good job of saying, yes, they're trying something new as far as that goes, but everything else, the kills and everything, don't make any sense. The shock value of them is stupid, and at least Revenge of Michael Myers has Donald Pleasance and Danielle Harris and some good performances, good kills in them. So while I personally don't think either movie is very good, I thought Cody did a very good job of explaining why Halloween 5 is at least better than Friday 5, which is, I just realized both of them.
I will say you completely neutered them by making it 80s because they couldn't choose Curse of Michael Myers or Jason Goes to Hell. So.
I did that on purpose. So,
I think he picked it.
I actually did pick that way.
Oh, you picked 80s?
80s. I picked 80s.
Well, there you go. All right, so Cody is up 2-1 as we get into the final prep question, which is going to be in the category of directors. What is the most fun action scene in a Tony Scott film? Cody, you get to go first. You have 1 minute when you start talking.
So Tony Scott is really good with action. I love when he just dives in and does action movies. I had a lot of choices on this. I had a lot of choices to go with. I decided to go with True Romance. I decided to go with Virgil versus Alabama. Basically, James Gandolfini versus Patricia Arquette. Basically, 200 and 300 pound James Gandolfini versus 120 pound Patricia Arquette. It's a brutal fight. I will say that. It's brutal, but it's so much fun with how she's able to basically completely take him out in like some of the most graphic ways possible, which when you look at that fight and see how she's at a certain point, you think, oh my God, this is going to be brutal to watch. Why do we need to see this? But how she able to fight back and still have fight and laugh in his face and do stuff. Robert picked Stopping the Train. Not fun.
Time. All right, Robert, you get 1 minute opening when you start talking.
Cody failed to mention that stopping a train that's going 70 miles an hour, that the entire train company had tried to stop previous methods and everything had failed. This is why I chose Frank and Will stopping 777 and Unstoppable. It's the ultimate conclusion of the film. The whole setup is them getting to the point where there's this monster, this immutable force that can't be deterred, especially with Frank and Will trying to run it down. So it feels earned when we get to the point of them trying to stop the train. In most Tony Scott films, and to be honest, in most films in general, the action scenes that happen tend to be between like entities, human, animal, super being, etc. But Unstoppable is unique. It's a man versus a monster. It's two normal humans trying to fight against a behemoth. And it sits apart in that way. When I think about Cody's fight, I don't even think it's the best fight in that movie. And when I think about it, he mentioned the brutality of it. Fun's not the word that comes to mind. It doesn't fill me with glee. It might be satisfying, but it's incredibly violent. The pay up to that, the lead up to it, is very brutal and makes me uncomfortable. And it almost sickens me, honestly.
Time. All right. 5 minute freeform when one of you starts talking.
I guess certain roller coasters can make you sick, but some people can still have fun with them. That's my take on the fight. The fight's brutal. The fight is, but her being able to laugh in his face, she's bleeding. She's able to fight back, jabs the corkscrew in his face, lights his ass on fire, and shoots him in the head. Brutal, fun, had a blast, watched it. Yours, please explain to me, because one, I'm not going to allow you to pick a 20-minute scene. It's not going to happen on this day. Basically, if you're saying stop 777, Denzel Washington turns the brakes and stops. Chris Pine jumps in a truck, drives to the front, and hits the brakes. That's the stopping of 777. If that's the fun, that is the most boring amount of fun ever. You rode a Ferris wheel instead of the tumbler. I have no idea.
Cody, I'm not going to play into your thing about not being able to choose that. The scene is the whole sequence. I mostly
20 minutes.
I'm mostly thinking of the part where Denzel is jumping across the trains, because we've never really seen train scenes done like that before. We've seen CGI like in Mission Impossible. We've seen more slow moving trains like Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, but we've never seen it where we actually looks like he's running across a speeding train. It's the first time we actually see Denzel in this sort of action-y type thing in this way against a monster of this caliber. Doing these kinds of action scenes. It goes on later on when we get stuff like The Equalizer. But and what I like about that part, what I say is it's the most fun, is because there's this quality to it as it's happening, where the audiences were watching it, and we get to see the other audiences going through it in the movie as they're watching the news report, and everybody's clapping and cheering, and it makes me fill with joy. It's so joyous when this is happening, when he's conquering this, he's trying to conquer this monster, which is not normal. And everybody is clapping along with him, and it's filling him with energy. It's filling me with energy. When I think about your scene, it doesn't fill me with energy. There's a lot of stupidity in it. Honestly, Virgil's really dumb in that scene. You're talking about how she was able to get the upper hand. It's just because he's dumb. He takes the eye off the ball because she says he looks stupid. That's dumb, Cody. And I mean, he could have shot her, and he lets her get the hairspray and the lighter and set him on fire. There's a lot of
You've been talking about the dumb fun is still fun at the end of the day, regardless how the scene sets up. She has to use her wits to outmaneuver this massive a man that just beat the shit out of her for the first round. She's like, she holds the thing up and makes him look in her eyes and goes, "Go ahead, you got one shot," and she jabs it right into his foot. Then she gets thrown through the shower. He comes at her again. He starts laughing at her. He doesn't understand because he thinks she's so easy to beat, and then she's able to beat her the entire way. Fun, brutal, lights him on fire, shoots him at the end. Okay, you can say that it's fun because you get to see a bunch of different perspectives. You're saying cheerish, joyous. So those are all those scenes. That's not fun to me. Hold on. I let you talk for 2 minutes. Let you run across the brains. You hit the brakes, and Chris Pine jumps in the train and stops it. I don't understand how that is fun. Yes, it's cool. Like, sweet, he solved the problem of a real life event, but overall, is that fun? No, not at all. Especially with Tony Scott's spinning cam the entire time while Denzel is running, while you're getting nauseous.
It might not be fun for you, Cody, but for people who enjoy people going up against things that are greater than them, it's a great time. And in your movie, there are action scenes that I think are actually more fun because there's a characterization element that makes me care more. I like the scene between Clarence and Drexel better because of the Gary Oldman factor, the lead up to it, the crackling dialogue. This has none of that. It's just a brutal beatdown leading into the action scene. And it's not fun. It doesn't induce a smile. It doesn't elicit anything that makes me excited to watch it. There's nothing smile worthy there except for the fact that you get to see someone use elements in a fight that aren't normal to overcome a big opponent. That's great.
Okay.
We're talking about overcoming a opponent that's too big.
Okay, so we're both soulless bastards on basically each other's pick. That's great overall. My thing is, I had fun watching that happen. You did not. I didn't have fun watching him stop a train. You did. I'm just saying, if you're talking about big action scenes, like I'm thinking when in Armageddon, when Bruce Willis blows up the thing, I'm excited about other action scenes that happen prior to that, not that he actually pushes it. Because just because the job's complete or the mission is done or the solution, that doesn't make it fun. That makes the mission complete. Woohoo, rah, rah. But that doesn't make it a fun moment for me. That means, I guess, satisfied is what you're looking for because they were never going to be able to stop this train. But he runs down the thing, he hits brakes, and he jumps onto a train and stops the brakes. I'm just trying to see what amount of fun. That seems like the most boring amount that you can have in an overall fun ride. He doesn't do anything interesting. Tony Cam does that fucking spin cam that makes you nauseous. Mine at least has you're talking about mine's David versus Goliath. Yours is just Train versus Denzel. At the end of the day, they're the
David
same
and
thing.
Goliath
Mine's just more fun. You're muted.
You're muted, yeah.
You're muted. Like, don't hear a word you're saying.
My bad. Cody, you get to close first.
Nope.
No, isn't this your question?
Yeah, but
Yes. Sorry, my bad. Robert, you get to close first. 1 minute when you start talking.
Cody's using his eloquence, is this how it is that he's going about making the argument to make it seem like my scene is not fun. It's the ultimate conclusion of film. A lot of people actually get to shine in the movie. And as it's going through, it's heart pounding, it's charming, there's humor in it, there's things that make me smile because it fills me with joy and glee. When I think about the fight between Alabama and Virgil, it's brutal. That is the one that's more satisfying because she gets over on him, but the payoff doesn't have those elements that fill me with glee, like in Unstoppable. The fight between Clarence and Drexel is more fun. The ending shootout where you have all these differing factions coming together, and you don't know what the motivations are, and everybody's there for a reason that doesn't really make that is lied between them. That's more fun. This is just somebody, a woman getting over on a guy. It's big versus small person, but it's person versus person. In Unstoppable, we have a monster versus people. We have elements of going across a train that we hadn't seen to this point, and they get the job done, and it makes you feel so great, and it's fun because of that. Cody's trying to shortchange it, but it's fun.
Time. Okay. Cody, you get to go next. 1 minute when you start talking.
Robert's painting a thing that you waited in line, you got to run one ride. He picked multiple scenes from my movies. There's multiple action scenes. Yes, some are a little bit some could say better. Mine I consider best or fun. His is this the only action scene? This is all he got, and it's not even an action scene. If anything, he basically runs and stops the train by pressing the brake. It's like pulling your handbrake in the car. Like, it's not that fun of an event. You get to see people cheer at the end, so I guess that makes it fun in his eyes. I guess he loves sitting in the stands of the sporting event and watching everybody cheer. My thing is, I'm taking mine with her that's beat down, completely brutal. She's about to get shot in the head, and she works her way out of it, finding different ways, Home Alone basically style, of able to correct the situation, hurt him into a way, and end up taking him out. Brutality, if you don't find that fun, that's your own interpretation. I think it's a fun scene because of the quick wit between each other, the David versus Goliath battle, rubbing the alcohol basically in his face, lighting him on fire and shooting him. It's a blast.
Time. Okay. All right, judges ready?
Yep.
Okay. I actually think this is probably the best of the four so far. I went with Cody. I thought that Cody did, and so to be frank, I've seen one of these movies, but not in a very, very long time, to the point where I don't remember much about it at all. And so this was basically new for me. And based off just the descriptions alone, Cody just did a better job explaining to me why his scene was more fun in the style of the movie and just overall compared to Robert's movie, which might be a good scene, but overall just Cody's is more interesting, exciting, fun. So I went with Cody. Brooklyn, your vote. What is it and why?
So I think this came down to Cody pitching the cynicalness and the kind of the brutality of why his scene was fun versus Roberts, where it's kind of like the ludicrousness of the train scene and that kind of that overall sense of relief afterwards, and when that's where he's kind of seeing that's where the fun is. I think for me, Cody gets the point. It came down to how he was able to break down how he was able to break down his scene, and then how he was able to how he was able to use that kind of cinematography. It might have been repetitive, yes, but I think that was effective enough to it was enough of a deterrent where I just didn't hear enough of a defense from that kind of aspect.
Okay. Brian, your vote doesn't count, but where would you have gone and why?
Yeah, God help me because I'm supporting the match that will have to follow this, which will be horrible. But I also voted Cody. I think that Robert was telling me why his scene was thrilling, why it was exciting, why it was satisfying, why it made people feel great. But I think in terms of fun, I mean, like he mentioned, like towards the end of his argument, he said there are elements of humor, but I didn't hear what those elements of humor were. Cody did a good job of telling me like certain instances that happened that did bring the dark humor to it, lines that were said, things that she did to him, and what made it humor, even if it is a dark, brutal humor. Like when Robert kind of criticized that, and Cody comes back and says, "Dumb fun is still fun," and that's true.
All right, well, that means your winner, Cody Newberry. Great match overall. We're going to start by talking to Robert. Robert, fantastic job tonight. I don't think you have anything to hang your head about for somebody who came in at the beginning of the season, getting a knockout on their record right away, 2-0, and then going up against someone like Cody. I thought this was a very even match. It just kind of went in Cody's favor. How are you feeling, sir?
I'm a little bummed. I thought this would at least be a 2-2 going to a final thing. So the fact that I didn't get that far and that in the arguments that I didn't get a argument in my favor. So I'm a little bummed. Cody played well. He put me on my heels a little bit in some occasions. That's sort of what Cody does. It was fun. I did have a good time debating Cody. We do have a little bit of contrasting styles, I think. It will be a fun match, him versus Kirk. I assume, as Brian alluded to, there will be a ludicrousness to it that will not be seen since many days before, or maybe it's the most ludicrous thing that'll ever have happened in Fan Zone. Who knows? But I had fun, and it was a good time spending with you all.
So, Robert, just because you lost this match doesn't mean that we won't see you again. We will definitely be seeing you again. And there's lots of people playing in Fan Zone right now. Who do you want to see when you come back?
Somebody had already called me out, so I'm just going to return the favor. I would like to play Amaru Moses in a debate match. We sort of talk about debate a lot between ourselves. I know I probably have to do a little bit more maybe to get to that point, but I think it would be a great match. I think there's a lot of respect there. So I think that would be fun for everybody.
Yeah, very interested in that 100%. So, Robert, congrats on a well-played first season. We look forward to seeing you again. Great job today. We're going to move over to Cody. Cody, you came into this. You said, Tim, I want to play. I'm here to play. And now, you're going to play Kirk. And how do you feel post playing Robert? And you're gonna be moving on. But first, let's talk about today. Your match against Robert. What do you think?
Robert's really good. I'm going to give him credit. I'm really pissed about the Pixar question. I'm still mad. I'm still boiling over here. So that's what it is. That's just how I am with the debate. When I lose something, I'm just like thinking of how I could have done that different. No, but Robert's really good. I think Robert made one mistake, and I think giving Will Ferrell to me was a weird choice. I mean, I think he likes it, but I'm a huge fan too, so it just fell into I kind of had three strengths that I could pick one myself. So that's the only thing I think he did. I thought that maybe we were going to go 2-2, honestly, because, again, I thought I won the Pixar, so when it was flipped, I was like, who knows what's going to happen in this last question. But yeah, Robert's really good. Robert will be challenging probably for the belt at some point. I think Robert a little too hard on himself at times. He thinks of debate as a little bit different than some. Like he has I had notes of where people could go. He flipped it upside down. That's why I don't rely on notes that often, because fuck them. When somebody starts talking, I don't look at them anyways. But yeah, great opponent. I know we've had our beef in the past, but no, honestly, I hope he's facing me or Kirk down the line at some point again for a belt. I think he's really good. Oh, right. And you want me to talk about Kirk?
So here's the thing: you're going to be playing Kirk.
Yeah.
This is going to be Mayhem at the Multiplex 5.
Oh, yeah.
I want to say.
Sounds great as beard.
5. Yeah. I can be corrected backstage. I believe it's. And here's the thing: you're going to be playing Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
who has won the belt off of Jacoby
Correct.
and has defended now and is now going up against you, who I think, Kirk, you and him, YLS. You guys are the YLS guys. You guys are pretty close, and now you play each other.
Yeah.
What do you see as this match? You've been behind the scenes on a lot of Mayhem matches in Fandom, Fan Zone, War Zone, and now you're actually playing in one of them. How do you feel?
Listen, this is kind of like a challenge to Kirk, okay? Just a challenge. Why doesn't he try to step out of his box, step out of his little comfort zone, stop picking the same 3 categories he always picks, pick something original, come to the table. I'll even give you one. My 2 categories, I'll do a random spin. I'll do a random spin of my categories. I won't have any say on them. I will randomly pick based on those that I get, and I will actually show you what a debate is all about. All I know is I'm 3-0 at this point. I've never went to the speed round. I think that is correct, is what I'm saying. I've never went to a speed round. So all I want to is be able to at least not get knocked out by Kirk. I want to battle him. He'll pick Kurosawa, and he'll pick John Cassavetes. I haven't seen shit of their movies. I'll Google it. I'll message Paul Oyama. He'll give me an option. And then at the end of the day, he'll be up 2-0, and I got to win 3 categories to win. It is what it is.
Cody.
Cody.
Kirk is here. Kirk,
my dad on their smartphone. What are you doing?
Here, Kirk, welcome. You joined in. You said, "I want to know who's winning this match." You're playing Cody. Kirk, you're going to be playing Cody at Mayhem. What do you think?
This, no offense to Robert or anybody else who played Cody, but I think was it after the Jacoby match and the Cesaro match when Cody announced he was coming back.
I don't remember.
In my mind,
Mario, I believe.
Yeah, but when he made that announcement, in my head it was Smash Cut 2 title match, me versus Cody. So kind of feel like this was inevitable. Cody, I think I remember watching Cody in his old days of debate, and I think he's scarier now because back then he was just running through everybody. I think now he has a little less confidence. He's kind of building that back up, and that makes him a tougher opponent because he's actually like thinking more about it and putting a little more effort and work into it than he seemed to have to before. So it's going to be a really good match.
Yeah.
I agree to that.
All right. Well, Kirk, thanks for stopping by and giving your 2 cents. I'm really
Don't be a coward.
I'm really looking forward to Mayhem. Brooklyn, let's get final thoughts from you on Robert versus Cody today.
So yeah, I friggin' love Robert as a debater. He has a really nice style. He kind of tends to humble a lot of opponents with some of his logic and some of his strategy, and I admire that kind of delivery and tone. The downside of this win is that a beast has been reincarnated. Kind of like Brock Lesnar returning to SmackDown. We now have heel debate Cody again, and it's just. I thought Coho was annoying when he first joined the community, but now we're back to this. Cody, like Kirk was saying, like Cody was running over people in the league in the early days. I will stand by that. I am one of the only people to take Cody to the last question in movie debate. So I don't think he has been running over competition in its entirety. But yeah, that's going to be a very fun title match. Yeah.
Brian, thoughts from you? You muted.
I'm usually not the one that gets stuck with the muted. I agree. I think Robert did a great job. It reminds me of actually the first year when I kind of dabbled in Fan Zone, where I had 2 great debates, and then I just ran up against. I think I went against Tuig, who was just when he was doing is one of the best in the group. And same thing with Cody. Like you said, when Cody came back, it was Kirk that said it, that he's kind of a favorite. You kind of thought he's got a really good chance of being the next person to challenge Kirk. And that's what it came down to. So it just came down to he had to face against one of the best. I do also think though that Kirk is right in that Cody has had to change up his style because he does make a little bit more intelligent debate as opposed to just attacking and berating people and calling them names and stuff like that, because the game has changed and the judges aren't won over by that, as he knows that I'm not. But but he's adapted. That's the whole point. He's adapted his style. And so now it's going to be interesting to see what happens with him versus Kirk. And it's going to be a lot of headaches.
Yes, it will, because I can only assume that it'll be the three of us on the desk for that title match. I'm very much looking forward to it. So this was a fantastic match. Robert, great job. Cody, fantastic job. Thank you guys for watching. Mayhem is right around the corner. Cody Newberry going up against champion Kirk. Will Kirk defend once again, or will Cody be the third debate champion? Fourth debate champion. I apologize. Fourth debate champion. It's going to be crazy to find out. We'll find out very soon. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you real soon with the next match. But until then, thank you to Robert. Thank you to Cody. Kirk jumping in there. Brian, Brooklyn, thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you soon with that title match. And until then, have a good one.
There we go. Thank you very much. Please come again. We have a lot more groceries.